Good evening, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Guardians of the CLE Podcast. This is actually our big episode number 50, so this is super cool. We're doing a little roundtable discussion, but I'm your host, Melanie Kirby. With me here, as always, I have my co-host, James Ellifritz, and we have a special guest here this evening, Believeland owner, operator, Believeland prep host, master high school football coverage guy.
Jeez.
Anything I'm missing, Kevin? How we doing,
No,
Kevin Sledz?
I think you got them all. I'm doing
Father, husband,
good.
Right.
Yeah,
probably
all the
uncle.
above.
Yeah.
Yeah, I appreciate you guys having me on.
Well, thanks for being here with us.
No problem.
Yeah, this was, as we know, a super fun team to cover all through the season. They took the Yankees to 5 games in the ALDS, finished 1 game short of an appearance in the American League Championship Series, and we're going to discuss it here tonight, and we're going to kind of look into our crystal balls and see what we'd like to see happen this offseason. Kind of some realistic views of what's probably going to happen and kind of our wish list, what we'd really like to see happen. Sometimes those can be very, very different, especially with a team operating with a $66 million payroll currently. But I'll tell you what, guys, maybe it was the fact there was a lockout all off season last year. We didn't quite know when the season was going to start. And on top of all of that, even once the guys returned to spring training, there were just Jose Ramirez trade rumors swirling all over Goodyear. Kind of left a lot of us feeling a little uneasy heading into the 2022 season. We weren't really supposed to compete until 2023 at the earliest, but that magical day happened on the bus heading out of Goodyear, and Jose Ramirez signed his 7-year contract extension. And I don't know about you guys, but that kind of seems like an early turning point before the season even started. The vibe kind of shifted with this team.
Yeah, it was definitely the settling point to the team, being able to rally around your top star, offensive star anyways, no disrespect to Shane Bieber. But yeah, having Jose locked in, not having to focus on his contract all season, and the guys knowing that, hey, look what the team did. They're willing to spend some money on one of their star players. And Jose's, I think we all know it, his hometown discount he gave us because of loving the city of Cleveland and loving the organization and the coaching staff. I think played a big part in his decision to remain with our ball club.
Yeah, I mean, and you mentioned that the trade rumor, it was reportedly all but a done deal with San Diego. And Jose's agent went to him and said, "Here's what's going on," and he pretty much said, "No, get a deal done. I want to stay here. I don't want to go to San Diego. I want to stay in Cleveland. This is where I want to be." So, and obviously it worked out. They got the deal done. He took a little less money than he probably should have, but he's here, and we're happy, and we're gonna have him for a very long time.
Yeah, Jose definitely took the wheel on that, because I guarantee you Rafa Nieves was looking at him like, dude, you are nuts. You are worth so much more than this. Are you sure you want to stay here for this? And he did. And, for all the people saying, he's going to bold if times get tough, or we're just going to trade him in a year or two, he made sure to get that no trade clause in that contract. So if that's not loyalty, I don't know what is. He made sure to add that piece too. But even with that Jose Ramirez extension, they committed to playing the kids, seeing what they have in the kids. And there was a ton of apathy surrounding the name change, the lockout, the whole playing the kids philosophy. As came out after the fact, we know they came in second place on Matt Olson and Jesse Winker. Jesse Winker looks like we dodged a bullet. Matt Olson obviously would have been phenomenal to have in the middle of that lineup. But with playing the kids, they were predicted to win around 77 games by most. Fangraphs had them at like 7% chance to make the playoffs. And I think what made us all, at least me, a little nervous was they were still playing the Bradley Zimmers, the Oscar Mercados, the Bobby Bradleys. And it's like, whoa, hold on. Like, these are not the kids we should be playing right now. Anybody who follows our top 5 minor league system knows there were way better options. And it didn't take long. Opening day, Bradley Zimmer was traded for Anthony Castro and a bag of chips. And then shortly after, Oscar Mercado was DFA'd twice. Is he going to get a ring if the Phillies win the World Series. That would be crazy.
When.
Yeah. Lucky
They're going to
guy.
beat Houston.
He, for his one at bat, which guess what, ended in a strikeout for Oscar Mercado in Philadelphia. But the point being, they finally, cut bait with those guys. And they started calling up the Gabriel Ariases, the Tyler Freemans, even Connor Pilkington making huge starts. Obviously, the Guardians led the major leagues in doubleheaders this season. He made some big time starts in those games. And then later in the season, we even got the Will Brennans finally, Will Benson, Bo Naylor, although he didn't get many at bats last season. What do you guys have to say about, this front office? And even at the deadline, they didn't make any moves. And obviously they had all the pressure from the outside to add a big bat. And I'm not saying it was the right thing to do, because as I'm going to talk about later, I think they could still be playing if they would have added a Sean Murphy type guy at the deadline. But that's neither here nor there. I think we have a lot more clarity on our roster at this point, more so than we did last year. What are your guys' thoughts?
Well, if you remember at the beginning of the year, there was a lot of guys that were free agent. Remember, they were getting kind of strung out. They were waiting and not signing right away, and allowing them to. They wanted the market to play out a little bit longer, and I think we did the right thing at the trade deadline, because we would have overpaid for a veteran. But look at it. Look at the example of what Kyle Schwarber's doing for the Phillies right now. That's the guy. Not necessarily him, but that kind of a position where they've had that playoff experience. He's a veteran, can play multiple positions. And that's somebody that style of a player with that experience is somebody that I'm going to be looking to see what's available come this offseason to add to our roster, because right now I think it's about experience that's going to be able to help us get through to those next rounds of the playoffs next year.
Yeah, it was definitely low expectations for me. I figured if everything went right, and by going right, I mean our rotation carrying us and Franmil Reyes hitting 30 to 40 home runs. But I mean, we all know what happened there.
Yeah.
I had them about 80 wins if everything went right. So, far exceeded my expectations. And like you said, opening the season with Zimmer, Mercado, Bradley, and Chang, I was hoping it was only a matter of time before they all were jettisoned, and it happened. But, seeing the development of the young guys like Steven Kwan and Oscar Gonzalez, who, I've been waiting for him to come up. I've followed him since he came to the Guardians or Indians as a free agent signee out of the Dominican. Always loved his power potential. He didn't show it a whole lot this year, but I think that's still untapped. But, what can you say about Steven Kwan and what he did? I expected him at the major league level to be a 300 hitter at some point. I thought maybe this year at best he'd hit 280, 285, and he almost hit 300. But like you said, it's going to come down to adding a veteran bat with power potential, with not power potential, but power. We don't need potential. We need power. We need that piece to get us over the hump, because it's great to see what they did this year. They exceeded expectation, but all that did is raise the bar for next year. They're going to be expected to be World Series contenders. And, they have to go into the offseason preparing to do so.
I have a theory about that, about how many pieces we are away from being a World Series contender. And I would say kind of the model right now should be the Houston Astros, right? They have they rebuilt. They were rebuilding for years. They rebuilt that farm system. They brought up their guys, Correa, Springer, Bregman, Altuve. And they've been able to maintain this. They brought in Yuri Gurriel, signed him out of Cuba, I believe. And, they keep replenishing. And what's their formula? We know they have a dynamic bullpen. I'd argue our bullpen's just as good, if not better. Is it sustainable? We'll have to see next year. Obviously, their rotation, you got Verlander, Valdez, Javier, dynamite top three. McCullers, I mean, he was tipping the shit out of his pitches last night. But he's
not last night.
Yeah. Man, that's a whole nother thing. I have no idea how Dusty Baker and the coaching staff in Houston just let him stay out there with different leg kicks, different glove raises for each pitch. That's wild. That's a whole nother thing. But Their rotation, obviously dynamite. For us, we have Shane Bieber for now. We have Tristan McKenzie. We need that third guy. Cal, love Cal. Seems like a great dude. Should not be starting 2 games in a playoff series for us. He's not that type of guy. If we could do that, so I'd say we're one kind of top middle of the line starter away, kind of to bridge that gap to Gavin Williams, Daniel Espino, Tanner Bybee. And then their lineup. We know they don't strike out a lot, but they take their walks, and they also have a shit ton of power in their lineup, which we do not have. I would argue we're maybe that starter and a couple bats in the lineup away from being close to what the Houston Astros are. And I think it's pretty much just as sustainable with the farm system depth that we have.
Well, I think you're going to mirror the same thing we talked about as an experienced, proven hitter with a starting pitcher. We need somebody like a Craig Morton type guy that's got all that playoff experience, that can go longer than, your number 5 Savali, where if he gets through 5 innings, you're like, yes, thank you. He made it. So I really think we do need that, the veteran pitcher. How long did we drag Shaw along this year in the bullpen? As a veteran.
That'd be a great bullpen coach.
Yeah. So, and that's pretty much what he was, right? That's what he was there for. He was to help. And I tell you what, if we don't know all the behind the scenes, but if he was that guy on top of the coach on the field, so to speak, then he did a great job with the guys that we had. There's no doubt. But we're still going to need, like I said, it's about getting proven veteran players to help carry this team through the lows that they're probably going to experience, where you're struggling to meet all the expectations like Kevin talked about from this past year, and how the bar's been raised. You're exactly right. And how do you answer to that? And I really think over the 162 game season, those veterans are going to have to pay off. And let's see if the front office opens up their checkbook and pays some guys to get them in here.
Yeah, you're looking at adding power, and the 2 positions that make the most sense, obviously, are first base and outfield. One or both of those positions. No offense to Gabriel Arias or George Valera. I want proven power. Those guys have power potential, but if you're talking about being a World Series contender, you need proven talent to get you there. And I think both of those guys are going to be fine players, but they need to go for the veteran leadership and the veteran power at one of those 2 positions or both. I have some guys in mind. I know we'll talk about that in a little bit, but the catching position, I'm fine keeping either. Oh my God.
One or the other, right?
Yeah, one or the other.
Hedges.
I couldn't think of Hedges' name. Hedges or Mailey. And, they have to decide, are they going to give the reins to Bo Naylor? Is he ready yet? I know there's a small sample size, 8 at bats. You can't judge anything on that. But didn't log a whole lot of time at AAA. So, they have to decide, are they going to go with him or, talk to Oakland again about Murphy? I know they had conversations at the deadline, and that, the compensation was too much that they wanted to give up. So, do you want to have that conversation again, or do you trust Bo Naylor?
Yeah, and it was nice having him up at the end of the year. But I think we can almost answer that question. Look at the names that we did read off at the beginning: the Zimmers, Mercados, Bradleys. They're probably going to start out defense. They're going to start out with our 200 hitting batting average catchers, and then maybe bring Naylor up, maybe in May. I don't, just to keep him, giving him playing time at AAA. So we'll see.
Well, Tito said he's okay with sacrificing the offensive catcher for the defense.
Oh, yeah.
But the problem was at that bottom of the lineup, you also have Miles Straw, who was struggling to hit 200 most of the season. So you had pretty much back-to-back automatic outs most of the time.
Yeah.
And I'm okay sacrificing offense too, but my sacrificing is more 220, 230, not 170, 180.
Yeah.
What if I told you didn't really have to sacrifice much defense and you still get a lot more offense than we've been getting out of our catcher position the last couple of years? So I know for a fact they checked in on Sean Murphy at the trading deadline. Obviously, as expected, the price was astronomical, because why not? They had him under control for 4 years. Oakland's not done tearing their team down yet. I'd be shocked if they went into next season with Sean Murphy on their roster. I think the price is going to continue to drop a little bit. But it's crazy to think of where this team would be right now if Jose Ramirez didn't have the broken thumb like we all knew he had. He could say it's fine. I give him props. He's a gamer. It felt like the whole Baker Mayfield conversation all over again, except Jose Ramirez is super likable. It felt like that. Like, where's the adult in the room here? Why, like, the teams are gaslighting us, making us think we're crazy that these people aren't hurt when they're clearly hurt. It felt like that all over again. We knew as soon as the season ended that Zach Meisel tweet was going to drop. Jose Ramirez needs thumb surgery, expected to be ready by spring training. Well, that happened. And also, little did we know, Andres Gimenez, same thing. He had a broken bone in his hand as well. And, whether that came from one of his million hit by pitches, maybe a diving attempt into first base, or I do remember a situation, I think maybe even a couple times where he was covering the bag at second on a stolen base attempt and he got cleated a little bit. Either one of those things, he obviously was not healthy in the postseason. I was concerned. I'm like, what happened to this kid that he looks like 2021 Andres Gimenez, who struck out all the time? It was concerning. I'm like, did he really fall off a cliff? So I was actually relieved to hear that he had an injury he was playing through, because at least then we have a reason why this kid was struggling so badly. But we head into next season, and this logjam at middle in the middle infield, it's getting real now. Like, the time is coming. You have to start making some decisions on these guys. And I think the whole thing starts with Amed Rosario. And I think this because there's so many different things you can do, and he's such a hard player to figure out. Because Amed Rosario did a lot of really good things for this team last season. There's no denying that. Could he have done a lot more? Absolutely. And I think that's where the problem comes in, is did he come in top 5 in the league in hits? Yes, he did. But there's always a disclaimer. 75% of those were singles. And I'm not exaggerating. Literally 74.9, whatever, they were singles. And that's not to mention his high leverage stats. They weren't very good. 30+% strikeout rate. He's hitting in the number 2 spot. Obviously, we know Jose Ramirez is, lobbying for an extension for him. I don't see any way in hell that happens. You have way too much talent behind him. I don't see the extension. So do you keep him? Do you keep him at shortstop, keep him in that 2 hole, or do you trade him? And I know it's unpopular to some people, but I'm in the camp of trade him and get it out the way. There, like I said, no way you extend him. What's the point of waiting till the trade deadline? He had a 103 WRC plus, which is just 3 above league average. We know Gabriel Arias would be better defensively. That's not even up for debate. And I do think Gabriel Arias with a full season healthy could give us a 103 WRC plus with more power. And that's not to mention, Brian Rocchio waiting in the wings. Angel Martinez has to be added to the 40-man roster. Jose Tena, Tyler Freeman. A move has to be made somewhere, because we know Andres Gimenez is kind of etched in as that starting second baseman right now. And with him winning a Gold Glove at second, I'm not even so much concerned about sliding him back to short at this point. I think he's fine at second. I think he's comfortable there now. And we see he could win a Gold Glove. But what are your guys' thoughts on Amed Rosario in the shortstop position? Because I think it's the one domino that has to fall here.
I think we've been spoiled. To have Omar Vizquel and then Lindor in that position after decades of garbage shortstops. I really think we've been spoiled because, those are 2 unbelievable. To me, Vizquel's a Hall of Famer. Will he get the votes to get in? Probably not. And Lindor is still proving himself to this day.
You weren't a Johnny Peralta fan?
Huh?
You weren't a Johnny Peralta fan?
I think I had his bobblehead long enough to not get dusty. So Rosario getting on base. I'll take the singles if you have, guys like, the Judges and the Stantons. And if you got guys with more power and he's scoring more runs, I really don't think we would be focusing as much on him just getting singles and getting on base. It's the fact that he's scoring runs. Do we have that next year behind him? We did with Jose for sure. But still, I somebody's going to have to play him out of that position.
He's not stealing bases either, which bothers me too. He should have had way more than 18 steals for all the singles that he had. And then obviously that's not even talking about, he had in the 19 double plays last year, which is a major killer in front of the middle of your lineup. So maybe they just need to move him down in the order. I've always said I think he'd be a perfect 6-7 hitter. I just don't know if the production he's giving you is worth blocking everybody you have behind him.
Where did Bo Naylor hit in the lineup in AAA? Do you know where he was at? 3-4. So if a guy like him moves up to a 5-6 spot and move other guys up, then possibly, Ahmed, we already talked about the 8 and 9 spots. We know where the 9 spot most likely would be if Bo Naylor wouldn't be in there, is going to be our catcher or Miles Straw. So maybe Ahmed.
Sean Murphy.
Do you feel better if Ahmed's in the bottom of the order then?
Yeah, I mean, I think Ahmed Rosario would be really cool at the bottom of the lineup to jumpstart the bottom 30-year order, to get on base in front of the guys like Quan and, maybe a Will Brennan or even Nolan Jones type in the 2-hole. Somebody who's going to move those runners over, someone who doesn't strike out as much. Obviously I mentioned the over 30% strikeout rate, which is way too high in front of Jose Ramirez. I think it's just, they need to get that hitter that they're comfortable replacing him there with, because I don't think they can be too happy with him in the 2-hole, even though, I mean, they keep doing it over and over again, because he'll get that one single once in a while and drive in a run. And I'm not downplaying what he's done for this team. Like I said, he's in the top 5 MVP of this team, because he has had a lot of big moments. I can't decide if I don't like him in the top of the lineup or I just don't want him starting at shortstop.
Here's another thing to think about that's, it's a theory, but it's worth talking about, is did Jose take less? Because, you hear that about the NFL when guys restructure contracts to keep certain teammates with them. Did he take less because
he'd be a goofball? He
feels the front office is going to keep somebody. I don't know. It's definitely a stretch, but it's Jose. Look what he did.
He signed that extension before knowing if Ahmed would ever be locked up or not. Unless Chris Antonetti gave him some kind of like wink, tongue in cheek, like, hey, I got you. I don't know. Then maybe, but like Jose was content signing that deal with a no trade clause before he ever knew what would happen with Ahmed Rosario. I mean, I hope that money goes personality. Elsewhere. He's a great guy. I am fully confident in his ability to make a new best friend on the team. They got FaceTime and all sorts of stuff. I think we can help Jose out there.
I'm pretty much okay either way. If they keep him, I'm fine with it. If they trade him, I'm fine with it. But like you said, the decision has to be made.
One way or the other.
You've got Arias, who's probably not going to play first base. Now he's a shortstop. You could always move Jimenez to shortstop because you've got Tyler Freeman, who has nothing left to prove in the minor leagues. Then, like you said, the guys behind him, Rocchio played at AAA last year. I know it was a small amount of games, the same as Jose Tena. Both of them are at AAA. They're both knocking on the door. Angel Martinez, who could end up
being the best one.
Yeah, he might be the best of all these guys, and he's at Akron. He's knocking on the door at AAA. I mean, there's a huge logjam in that. I mean, then there's guys behind them, the younger guys like Milan Tolentino, and the list goes on and on as far as the middle infield prospects. So decision has to be made. I mean, they either got to move Rosario or they got to move some of these prospects and maybe use them to acquire, the other pieces they're looking for.
Yeah, it's frustrating because I think he'd be the perfect utility infielder, but they don't play him anywhere else but shortstop. So we'll have to wait and see there. I do think that that's one of the first things they need to address, because I think it kind of affects what other moves they make throughout the offseason as well. Because if Gabriel Arias isn't, if there isn't a path for him to get every day at bats here, I think he gets traded in the offseason. And I've always said that it's always kind of felt like him and Nolan Jones have been the odd men out. And, with Nolan not getting that call up later in the season and, that spot on the playoff roster, it just seems fishy to me. But that's another thing as we move on. The outfield suddenly has a logjam too. For so long, this organization could not produce outfield prospects, not since Grady Sizemore. And all of a sudden, we have Stephen Kwan, Gold Glove winner, Rookie of the Year finalist in left. He's pretty much the guy who's cemented in left field in your leadoff spot, which is a great place to start as far as your lineup goes. Then you got center and right to kind of work out. Obviously, you have Miles Straw, started almost every game there this year. And then Oscar has gotten most of the ABs in right field. But then what do you do with the Will Brennans, the Will Bensons, Nolan Jones, George Valera? Somebody has to be moved. I have a hot take there too, but the outfield I would love to see is Stephen Kwan in left, Will Brennan in center, and Oscar Gonzalez and either Nolan Jones or George Valera kind of platooning with him in right field. That gives you, a ton of options there. Oscar's proven a lot at the major league level. If he could lay off that breaking ball, he could be even better than he is now. And he was almost a 300 hitter as it is. But like Kevin said, I think there's a lot of power potential there too that still hasn't been unlocked yet. So I think you got a lot there. Just so many guys. I mean, a couple of these guys have Miami Marlin written all over them. They need outfield help desperately.
Or the Pirates.
Yeah, they only take our rejected prospects, not our top ones.
Right. We're talking all this logjam, and like I said, we'll go back to the free agency. If the ownership decides to spend money and offers that to the front office, and they go out and get some free agents, it's just going to get tighter. So they're going to have to do something. I mean, it's just a matter of time.
And I agree with you. If they aren't going to add from the outside and the outfield, I'd like to see Miles Straw ideally as the fourth outfielder. Your defensive replacement, pitch runner, play a couple times a week, and play Will Brennan in center field. I like his bat a lot, and he's a very good defender as well. And like you said, Kwan is cemented in left field, and Oscar, even though he did play better defense in Cleveland than he did in the minor leagues, so that was a good sign. Even though he did have some mental lapses, especially in the playoffs, but.
He's fun.
You gotta have his bat in the lineup because I think the power is going to come definitely, and I did not expect him to hit almost 300 this year. I mean, he turned himself into a complete hitter, which was very impressive.
The doubles, man, and that wall at Progressive Field robbed him of at least a few home runs, just right off the top of the wall. But I've heard a lot of rumblings too that there's some people in the organization who actually value Will Brennan higher than George Valera. There's some concerns about Valera, the high fastball. Jimenez had that same issue as well. Although Jimenez his issue is more like way up out of the zone. He chases those. Valera's more up in the strike zone. He's got to work on. He chases those quite a bit and isn't making contact, but that's something to watch out for because, obviously, Will Brennan got that call up at the end of the year, wasn't on the 40-man roster. That could have just been they wanted to get a look at him to see if he should be added to the 40-man roster. But, I mean, that's something, too. I think one of them is going to be a trade chip, and a damn good trade chip at that. Like, that could be a centerpiece of a pretty sizable load you'd be getting back, which, I think the majority of this team's moves this offseason is going to come via the trade just because of all these log jams we're talking about. We thought it would happen last year with all the guys they had to add. We thought for sure all the trades would come last year, but with all the uncertainties surrounding the lockout, that rush to the finish line right up against spring training, maybe it was just too tight of a window to get something done. So they went with the play the kids mindset, but I think they know now, all right, we saw what these kids can do. We saw a lot of good things, but we also saw a lot of things that we need to improve on. And I think they will be willing to do that. Again, I don't know if David Blitzer's cash flow is going to be coming in right off the bat. With a minority owner, I don't see any reason why they can't be around $95-100 million. And they're close to 70 right now, which isn't a ton when you think about the arbitration increases and things of that nature. But it's enough to get you a couple proven guys on this team who have been here. And the main one, once they figure out what to do with Ahmed Rosario in that middle infield, I really think they need to get Josh Naylor a platoon partner at first base. I think Josh Naylor is better suited as a DH anyways, just with his leg. I mean, he played pretty great defense when he was out there at first base. No real complaints there, especially when our only comparison was Owen Miller, who was awful at first base. But you could even get a guy like Oscar Gonzalez some reps at DH too. I think they see that, once they let Franmil go shortly after the deadline, I think they saw that DH spot has a lot more value and you can kind of rotate guys in and out of that spot depending on matchups. But they were playing Josh Naylor against lefties way too much. Like if I saw Wandy Peralta come in against Naylor one more time in the playoffs, like I was going to jump out of the upper deck. Like he had no approach. It was swing, swing, swing. Like he almost shut his eyes. It was like he literally was just praying to make contact. And the stats back it up. So Josh Naylor hit 173 against lefties, only one home run, which shockingly was off Nestor Cortez back in April. He slugged 236, 53 WRC plus, and that's not going to get it done. It's not going to get it done in the regular season. It's not going to get it done in the playoffs. Obviously, there's a ton of first basemen available this offseason. You have Anthony Rizzo, known Cleveland killer. If you can't beat him, sign him. You got Anthony Rizzo set to opt out of his contract with the Yankees. You got Jose Abreu, who knows firsthand how good this Cleveland team can be. Christian Walker, although I don't think he's going to be moved, he's an option from the Diamondbacks. Josh Bell, he's set to be a free agent. Old friend Carlos Santana still kills lefties. He had 265 against them last year with a 402 slug and a 134 WRC plus, which is still really good for his age. And shockingly, I was so shocked to see these splits. The best of this group against lefties was actually Brandon Drury, who got traded from the Reds to the Padres at the deadline. He hit 299 off lefties with 12 homers, a 626 slug, and a 160 WRC plus. He hasn't played much first base, but he's kind of a utility guy, plays all over the place. But that shocked me. But I'll let you guys say who you'd like to see as a potential addition there. Obviously, some guys more expensive than others. But I'll give mine once you guys speak on this.
I mean, Rizzo has a ring, but left-handed bat. How is he going to hit lefties?
I'm glad you asked before you continue.
Yeah.
He only hit 233 against him, but he had 10 homers, a 550 slug, and a 154 WRC plus against left-handers.
Well, maybe that's it. There you go. Because we're talking veterans, we're talking somebody that's been there before, that needs it, or the dugout definitely needs it, to have more experience out there. So, I think of Jordan Luplow when we had him, he was really on the team because he could hit left-handed pitching, and that's why he'd be in the lineup. And do we have that guy off the bench? If Miles Straw becomes that fourth outfielder, which I agree. That's what I would love to see him as.
Kind of.
Yeah.
That's really good.
Yeah.
Yeah, you mentioned Luplow. Brandon Guyer was another one who was on this team because he killed lefties. But
and he loved to get hit by pitches.
Yes, he did.
Yes.
The ball magnet.
He was fun.
I want a right-handed hitting first baseman just because we have so many lefties. And I'll give you my top three for my first base choices. Number 1, Jose Abreu. Number 2, Jose Abreu, and number 3, Jose Abreu.
Are they related?
Yes, they are. I think he would fit in perfect. Like you said, he knows how good this team is. We know how good he is from seeing him over the years. I just think he would be a perfect fit. One guy I want to mention, a non-position player who I absolutely love, and I know you had him mentioned in the notes, is Cody Morris. I want to see him get a rotation spot next year, even if it's at the expense of a Plesac or a Savali. I think he's going to be a very outstanding pitcher. I've been waiting for him to come up. He's had a lot of injury issues over the last couple of years. So, we haven't got to see a lot of them. People kind of forgot about him, but I mean, he's got magnificent stuff. And I think he's going to be a very solid starting pitcher at the major league level.
Yeah, I think they need to trade Plesac the minute the World Series ends. Like as soon as the ball goes in the guy's glove for the final out, they need to be on the phone because
agree.
Ever since 2020, I just don't see how you keep him around. He's immature. His production just doesn't match up for the head case he is off the field. And like you said, you have guys like Cody Morris who can step in. Even if they acquired a guy, Cody, you still have room for those guys, but you need Plesac out of the fold. Obviously, Savali has durability issues. He's pretty much guaranteed a couple IL stints every season for whatever reason. And I actually shared a tweet last night from last season when I'm like, get Cody Morris up here and in this rotation. He's got the stuff for it. And even in the playoffs, he was coming out of the bullpen, but he mowed the Yankees down like it was nothing.
Yeah, he did.
In that game 4. He's definitely got the stuff. It's like you mentioned, just a matter of the durability if, they try him out in the rotation.
Yeah, you talk about durability with Plesac. I mean, his injuries were behavior related.
Yeah.
It had nothing to do with, the way he was throwing the pitch and pulled something or tore something.
That's like I work on a computer. That's like me chopping all my fingers off in a fit of rage, like my money makers. Like you can't use your moneymaker to get your frustrations out.
Yeah, there's no voice command when you're on the mound.
Definitely not.
Hey Siri, throw a fastball.
Right. Real quick, but I know we're getting close to an hour here. Let's kind of do something. What do you want the team to do this offseason, and what do you expect them to do this offseason? James, we'll start with you.
I just basically do the hat trick on this one, say it again. I need veterans. I need guys that's been there to help this team because, there's so much youth on this team. And like we talked about, the expectations now, they're going to come with everything that happened this season for next year. And there's going to be some struggles. There are guys that are just not going to perform at that same level. We all know it. We even know that bullpens sometimes get hot and cold per season. And it's not just the particular player. So can we expect this out of our bullpen next year too? Maybe the starting pitchers, we're going to have to get more innings out of them this year, more wins of this next season. But to me, it's all about veteran leadership. It's the playoff experience that we're going to need to get past the Houston Astros, the Yankees, these teams that have some of that already. But, as Houston proved, the Yankees are beatable. We just didn't have a good matchup at that point and got sent home. But we had our opportunity in Cleveland to close the series. We were unable to. And I think that's where that veteran leadership, whether it's bullpen, starting pitching, or on offense, that's what have made the difference right there.
I agree with James. Obviously what I want to see him to do, I already made it known, sign Jose Abreu. I don't know how realistic that is. Like you said, I don't know if Blitzer's money is going to kick in this season. Hopefully it does. But what I expect them to do is maybe acquire a lower tier free agent or trade acquisition and fill from within, kind of like they did last year with the young guys.
Agreed. I want Murphy, I want Abreu or Anthony Rizzo, and I want them to trade Plesac immediately. Again, kind of indifferent on Ahmed Rosario. What I think, and a starter. I want them to get one starter. And a couple other names to watch for, too, is Milwaukee's couple guys. Brandon Woodruff and Corbin Burns. They're probably a couple guys who could be had for the right price this offseason with Milwaukee kind of in retool mode, trading Josh Hader at the deadline. So they might call and check in there, too. But what I think they'll do, I think they'll re-sign Hedges to a 1-year deal. Maybe Carlos Santana to a 1-year deal. They've shown they're willing to bring him back in the past. And like I said, he still does hit lefties really well. Not what I want to see, though. I think he's kind of getting closer to the washed up end. But that's who they like to go after. And I think I think they do make one significant trade, again, just due to all the prospect capital they have. So we'll see who they choose to go for that route. But either way, I think it's gonna be a fun off season. I'm kind of itching for this World Series to be over so we can start to get some rumblings and start to hear some rumors and get into that hot stove season. That was missed big time last offseason when obviously the lockout lasted the whole winter and there was no type of baseball news whatsoever. So I'm grateful we're going to have a real offseason. I'm praying Blitzer's money comes in. I think this front office knows we're only a couple pieces away from being serious threats to make it to the World Series. So I want to thank everybody for listening tonight, for tuning in for our big 50th episode. Thank you for all the love and support in this last year plus to make this possible. Can't wait to continue to bring you more hot takes and fun times throughout this off season as we count down to the 2023 spring training. And be sure to check out BelieveLandMediaLLC.com for all of our podcasts and written content. We got you covered on all the pro sports teams, high school sports, wrestling, and much, much more. Kevin, I want to thank you once again for joining me and James this evening. Is there anything you want to add before we get out of here?
No, I appreciate you guys having me on, and you guys you're killing it. Over 300 downloads. You set a high for this past month, so just keep doing what you're doing.
Well, you too, Kevin. Our double play duo here that it's here every week. We do the best we can for you, and we're proud to be associated with you in this podcast and Believe Land Media, and we just look to continue to get better, just like our Guardians.
Most appreciated, and go Cavs.
Go Cavs.
Yeah, big game coming up tonight, but until next time, stay safe, stay healthy, and go Guardians. And in the meantime, go Phillies.